I'm Elisa Mortensen, and this is Undo Redo. Hello, I'm here, just a little distracted. How is everyone today? What have you been up to? I know it has been since February 4th since I have recorded a podcast, and I've been going through so many things. You guys, what kind of emotions have you guys been up to lately? What are you experiencing most? Just to do a quick check-in. I like check-ins because they let you know, like, wow, I feel chaotic lately. I feel like I can't catch up. Or like, what is your thought? What is your feeling? What's going on? And how is that tied to what you have been most focused on? How is that tied to what is prevalent on your mind most often? Because we're feeling most often what we're thinking about most often. And I'm guessing, just taking a guess here, that it's not calm and the rest and the good times that we have. Most of the time, it's all the work, what's next, and things like that. So just notice and be aware. It's not all the things that you have to do. It's that all the things that you have to do are priority to you and taking over your mind instead of the rest and the wellness and the connection with others and things like that. Good conversations. So I have a tiny challenge for you. It's trying not to judge things as being good or bad. I'm going to just call it making everything a moral issue. Believe it or not, this one lesson has changed my life. When we see things as black and white, we use it against ourselves and we use it against other people often. It comes with a lot of shame. It comes with a lot of blame. That's right. He's wrong. I'm right. They're wrong. And the shame and blame that comes with the black or white thinking, and it drains us big time. So neither blaming nor putting shame on yourself allows you to move forward. And it also suppresses other people. So we don't want to be that person. What would it look like if you could decide that food was neither good or bad? But if you ate enough of this or enough of this, it would give you a different result. What if behavior wasn't good or bad either? You just had to apologize for some behaviors and not apologize for others, right? Then we'd quit guilt tripping ourselves and get all caught up in it. Little tiny challenge. I hope you accept it. Tell me how it's going. Lately, I've been up to watching myself, just observing. And I've talked about this in some of my first podcasts, but I highly recommend this for you all. And I want to touch on it again. And when I say I'm watching myself, what this means is that I am noticing when I am feeling powerful and when I am feeling powerless. This episode's about bringing renewed energy to your toughest relationships. And I want us to take all the responsibility for where we are right now and how we feel. I personally, in the last 5 weeks, has it been since I recorded a podcast? I kind of went MIA a little bit. I got all caught up in my head and I needed to take care of some things and get back on track so I could bring this kind of energy to you. Where I am right now, I've chosen every little bit of it. So if I'm observing how I choose to lead my business, how I choose to lead my family and communicate with them, I choose how to arrange schedules and how I show up to things, how I interact with people as I go along my day, people in my family, the people in my work. This way of observing is so helpful because we're gathering information. We're gathering information as to like, that felt gross and this feels good, right? And I can clearly see when I am showing up well and I feel good about it. And when I'm not taking full ownership, when I have some little air of blame or shame in how I'm showing, how I know I'm not showing up well. So there's a different energy between, I'm chasing something like I'm going all in on communicating with my youngest child, who's the only one left at home. I'm just very, very present with him. Or I'm avoiding him because it gets confrontational and I kind of shy away and don't communicate with him. And that's all me. Like, we want to blame them, but it's all me. But avoiding the work or in business or avoiding the people, like, that's all about what's going on in my head. and what intention that I'm holding. And this work of observing and just watching myself is helping me understand how I'm responding in my personal world and professional areas of my life. And it's teaching me about the importance of intention. Ultimately, how I rise to meet things or how I fall and shrink away and hide from them, which I have been doing for this podcast for many, many weeks. But this goes for everything we encounter. This rising or falling is just a choice. And this energy and mindset that we can bring, the source of your energy is the thoughts you have about it. It's 100% up to you. It's all your responsibility for how you're showing up. We could blame money. We could blame, people and crazy kids and all these things that are stopping us, heavy traffic. But people are afraid to be held accountable. I suggest give it a try. The thing that I have been growing with and from is my daughter's been going through some things, and I have been having my own experience right alongside her as her mother, hearing her share it. So I am so fortunate to have learned how to hold space and to be a safe place for her to be herself. Through the training and certifications, it made me somehow new, renewed, and everything that I learned was ownership. And when I had complete ownership, it allowed me to where she felt like she could include me in every detail because she wanted to. And this is a beautiful place to be. She's asked for my advice sometimes, and I'm able to stay in a place that isn't judgmental for anything that she's going through or anything that she is experiencing. And this is extra special because she's living really far away on an island. Those of you who know she's in Maui have mentioned it. It's been almost a year now, I think. But I get to be invited into her world through the way she is experiencing it and the way she thinks about it. And it has been a very, very beautiful thing for me. Sometimes I wonder, is it best that we know, or is it some kids don't tell me anything and some kids now tell me everything? I'm not sure. But let me celebrate for how grateful that I am that I did the work on myself for as long as it took for me to become that safe, trusted person for her to turn to, because that has so not been easy, but it has been so worth it. Her decision to trust me and confide in me now has been one of my greatest accomplishments in connection. And I want to go back a bit and catch you up on it. My third child is my only daughter. Her name is Victoria. In her later teenage years, into becoming an adult in that space where you're 16 to 18, I didn't have the awareness or practice in these skills and insights like I have now. I would overreact. I made big assuming judgments, and I wasn't practicing the skills or insights that I have. All the inconsequential decisions that she was making, I was totally blowing them out of proportion because my mind back then was all about seeing things as like black or white, good or bad. This was my way of interpreting things for most of my life. I'm a religious person, and the consequences of our actions are real, right? I believe that. Good, heaven, bad, hell. And I did this with my kids. I did this with my friends, with stories I heard. I was always judging things as like, oh, that's something we do. Oh, that's something we don't do. And you don't have to look at this very closely to see how the whole world does this, right? We're all so quick to point out everybody else's things. And it's a good guy, bad guy, they must fight, someone must win, and all of that's necessary. But I was thinking, as parents and caregivers and as leaders, we all have this agenda for people that we are in charge of and who we oversee. And we take on so much ownership of their behavior and their choices while they're in our charge, let's say. We want them to be a certain way and choose certain things to make their life better and to make good choices. And I chose to think about it this way. I mean, it's just society teaches us to think about it this way. And it's all based on my own conclusion that I know how they should be. Like, we all think we know that that's the way it should be. Well, you shouldn't have told them. Well, someone else would say, well, lying would be bad, right? So we all get to do as we please. But it's disguised in our minds as if we're in it for their own good. Like, well, they need to do this thing. They're not going to be happy if they don't do that. Like, I own their happiness. I'm in charge of making them happy. And all of this is because what we say so. Like, I'm in charge of your happiness because I say so, instead of letting them choose their happiness. There's a difference energy between like a pushing someone and pulling someone. Because when you want to pull someone in, they choose to use that energy to propel them forward to you or to a certain thing. But when you push someone, you're behind them pushing. So who do you want the energy to be coming from? You can't be their energy and that push behind them their whole lives. And sometimes like, oh, we got to push them just to get them going. And sometimes that's useful. Most of the time it's not. Most of the time you ask them what their plans, give them their own energy, and allow them to push themselves forward so they become capable of pushing themselves forward. Because it is disguised in our minds of like, it's because I love you. I am good intended. But little do we know, we are going about it in the wrong way. It's outdated and ineffective, and it drains relationships to push and force people. It actually suffocates people to hold on that tight to them and make them do things. So I want to talk next about allowing space, just natural room for people to mess up, creating kind of a container where people get to be as messy as they want. When you don't have that kind of space, they bump into you, run into you, and there's just not enough room. You constantly are butting heads, and it creates this division, like us against them. Why isn't this working? We make it about our demands and our disapproval. This only causes like a tremendous amount of misunderstanding for everyone. There's a severing that trust because we say we love them. We're disconnecting from them because it's for their good. And I just want to say that that's really not the case. My words and my actions from that space were not loving and understanding. When my daughter was a teenager and an early adult, I did not respond in kind ways. And that incongruency, pushing her further away. And it was coming from the story that I had about what she was doing that was either good or bad. She would try something and I would make it mean something horrible was going to happen and I was going to lose her, but really I was pushing her away. That's how I was going to lose her. And I almost did. And she ended up feeling like I can't trust her to make good decisions and that I need to intervene in her life. And then she would push me away even more. But as her mother, it's my job to make her, right? No, that's not actually true. So when I was asserting my parental rights to yell and control, it was punishing myself and definitely wasn't what was necessary to get her to where she needed to be. But she was young. She was just trying to figure out what life was. And I was perpetuating this kind of monster demeanor in her life. And if there would have been a camera in the room, you would have seen me be the monster she actually said that I was. She just told people it was abuse. She told her friends. She told some parents. Like, it was awful. Like, it was a terrible thing, right? And then the thoughts of losing her were more than I can bear because she just pushed me away more. And I was spinning in this story of things being bad. And then people were going to hear some sort of version of this. And this is a living nightmare as a parent. And you know how if you look for it, you find that it's true? Like, I was finding ways in which I was so much lesser. And many other people in the community found it to be true of me too. I just wasn't behaving as an accurate version of myself, who I said I was. I was putting so much pressure on myself because I thought I needed to control another person, which we're just incapable of doing. Especially a teenager or an adult. They get to choose if they have you in their lives or not at the end of the day. I did a reel just recently. If you want to go back and look at it, I wrote my daughter a letter when she turned 18, and I put a little section in one of my reels. The reason I wrote her a letter is just to tell her it was never my intention to control her. This pressure that I decided to put on myself and her wasn't how I really wanted to parent, and it wasn't me at all. I now coach parents and leaders all the time who say, but I do this because it needs to happen. I'm in charge of seeing this gets done. So yeah, maybe that's the case, but we're asserting our anger and forcing others into compliance. And then we're blaming them and we're blaming the situation, justifying our own behavior. And outburst and helping parents and leaders see a million ways that they could do better. And we're getting creative together. So you fast forward now, I'm having an experience where I'm teaching and leading people into the ownership of 100% responsibility and the experience of being with my daughter as she goes through some really hard things in her life as she's kind of alone, isolated on the island. She's chosen to live in Maui. We have a connection that is so meaningful, that has carried us both as individuals because we've both chosen it. We've both chosen each other. We both have great healing because we have that trust and connection. That rupture that happened, when you get back together, like that's what makes it grow tight. I know I often think of a broken bone. I can picture my son's broken leg and how it jarred. It didn't break, like it didn't unalign. It impacted, and then it came back apart like 7 millimeters. And it was like the longest healing time. They just waited for it to bridge the gap. But when it did, it was stronger. You could see on the x-ray that the bone was more dense. It was much more white, and it was stronger than any other part of the bone because it had that rupture and then it had that repair. And that's what happens in our relationships. And I love that there is little or no distance between my daughter and I because we both want it this way. And that repair has been so much stronger. We couldn't have had that had we not had the rupture. And neither of us behaved poorly because we are no longer having poor thinking or control over one another. It's just a mutual love and respect. The difference is, instead of my mind being focused on every little thing that she does that's good or bad, according to Elisa, right? I am not the decider of her story. I'm not the driver of her vehicle. She gets to do all of that, whether I see it that way or not. She really gets to do that. And I found that coaching lightened all that pressure. It gave me my ownership back. I felt like I was going to explode with the tiniest things that I didn't agree with. And it wasn't just with her. It was like in my business with other family members, because I was judging everyone. And it was so upsetting that they weren't doing it right, or says Elisa, says me. But it was in my personal and professional interactions. And I had no idea that I was the source of putting this kind of pressure on myself and everyone else. It felt so icky because it wasn't mine to take on. And you should have heard the story I had about what it was happening. Like, this is horrible. It wasn't even accurate, but you couldn't have convinced me at the time that was any difference. Because again, we find what we're looking for, and what we think it is becomes true to us. So be careful what you're thinking. So we so often are misled by our own minds. We take whatever thought comes and we run with it too soon. And just because it popped into our own minds doesn't mean it's true. Like, when we can observe our thoughts coming and going in and out of our minds and use our discernment to question whether or not it's valid, or whether or not we want to put it out there or even entertain it, our free will is what allows us to either drop that thought or move into hanging on to it and running. Nothing just happens to us in that way. We get to choose how we respond to everything. And there are dangerous thoughts that hurt us along the way, and they cause us fear and pain as a result. And how we feel, if we feel fear and pain because we choose those thoughts that are fearful and painful, then that determines how we act. And I was acting scared. I was acting desperate. And remember, those thoughts that you have in that story around what's happening doesn't even have to be true. It's just what you held on to. It's just what you decided that it was. So when we're feeling low and bad, it's 100% of the time our own responsibility, because it's something our mind has offered us that we've run with and that we're holding on to. One that we believe is true, but it's most likely not. It's just the version of what's happening that you're convinced and believe. So this is why I believe in coaching so big. And this is why I've been calling it meaningful connection, because this meaningful connection that I have found mends past pain. It actually heals past pain, and it closes the distance between two people through interactions and really clear communication. So between you and bringing this invitation to see 100% of the things your responsibility, there's this renewed energy that you can have that rebuilds the trust, that sees the hope in the future, and that can rewrite the story that you have about what's going on to a more accurate version, where you're in charge of you and I'm in charge of me, and we both choose each other. One where we don't feel scared, we don't feel desperate, and this is all in your favor because you feel so much better and you feel so good when you can respond well, right? That's all you, has nothing to do with them. And you know what else is in your favor is your mind loves to know how to do things. Sadly, society has shown us that you can be impatient and forceful and not give people any more chances, expect the worst if they have bad behavior ever, and on and on. But also what's true is that our minds love to know that it works, that we could see what makes things new, what makes things hopeful, what makes things heal, what makes things happen, how to let down our guards, speak our mind, tap into a place of more curiosity and compassion, willingness, acceptance, and love. Like we're like, oh, that's how that goes. I can choose that in this moment because they're sure yelling at me. Yeah, but what are they going through? Right? You can tap into a new, different place because then it knows how to do it over and over. So making that decision creates that neuroplasticity and neural pathway in your brains. Oh, we could do this more often. This feels so much better. I actually never had to get mad like that or controlling. When we can become this kind of a renewed energy, it's a very welcome place. It's a very inviting place. And for the person we're interacting with who has these experiences with us already in the bank, right? They've already happened. It's inviting to them to join you in a new, healing, more open conversation and rise your energy and choose each other. It's a beautiful place to be. And if you're struggling right now to even grasp what I'm saying or know how this could work for you, you've probably got someone in your life that you've been wanting to reach and connect deeper with. You can get on a call with me, and it's connect.elisamortensen.com, and you can book a conversation with me. And it's so not obligation anything. I'm just going to help you build a plan around your situation that's custom to you, and we can talk about what's next for you, because there is no right or wrong. There's just learning what works for you and what mistakes you never want to make again, and drawing a line in the sand for yourself, not on behalf of others, but just drawing a line in the sand for yourself where you won't go to that place where you were a crazy person again. It's always going to feel icky inside when we think we know more than someone else in their life. So if you're feeling icky about someone, and if you truly are in a negative energy around someone, I challenge you to rise the energy between you by changing your story about them, because you're not a victim to everything they're doing and saying. If you could be the one solid thing in their life that could maintain who they were, even in spite of all the challenges, when ruptures and mistakes and disconnect happen, if you're the example of repairing and getting back, it invites them to do the same, and it's in an authentic way. It's just by you being the example of it. So some key takeaways for this episode would be: learn to hold lots of space for them. They just need lots of room to make mistakes. And if you're trying not to make mistakes, just take a pause and take a deep breath. This lessens the pain that you're going to feel and when they do something that you're judging as good or bad, until you can get a handle on practicing it more often. And another key takeaway is that life experiences will teach people more than any lecture ever could. So allow them to learn and support them when something goes bad or wrong. Don't make it about like rubbing it in or you knew you were right or shame them or anything like that. But deeply connect with them on a level that says, that feels compassion and curiosity and love, and ask them questions. And another takeaway is be who you say you are. Be the kind, loving, understanding, supportive person you say you are, even when it's hard to see them suffer and make mistakes. Right? That will take away those poor behaviors of your own and close the distance between you, at least on your end. They get to choose their end. Another one is remember that they never determine how you feel. They get to make their decisions, and it's up to you how you are responding. When it's judgment, when you feel judgment, you'll be annoyed and triggered. When it's compassion and curiosity, you'll feel love, acceptance, and be curious as to what you can do next. And it will present to them with you not losing yourself and staying solid the way you are. So to keep the energy up in a relationship, keep ownership of your own emotions and your own words, because no one has the power to make you be the bad guy. You choose it. And go listen to the podcast I did a while ago called When You're Triggered. That would also help. So if you thought of anyone while you were listening to this, share it with them. If you thought of anyone while listening to this, share it with them. This is how the heavens reach us, is through each other. I love you all, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.